living in Provo 2 years ago. My husband was home teaching companions to a family who was pregnant with her first child. This family was only 26 weeks along, and she was sitting in her back porch in a late August afternoon, and she felt some pains. She got a little worried, and so she called her husband, and her husband came and said, you know what, let's go check you out, just to be on the safe side. So they went into the doctor, and they found, and the doctor looked her over and was like, you know what, you're fine, you're just Braxton Hicks, go home. So she went home, and as she walked to the door, she got a pain that almost collapsed her. So her husband rushed her back into the car, and they rushed back to the hospital, and she delivered her little boy on the gurney, only 26 weeks gestational. They ended up life-flighting this little boy to Primary Children's Hospital, and the doctors didn't think he was going to live. They told her specifically that he had too many problems, he was too early, they incubated him, she couldn't touch him for the first month, and for 6 months afterwards, all she could do was look at him from behind the glass. And she did that every day. The sick president came to her and said, what can we do as a state to help you? And she looked him straight in the eye and she said, you tell everyone to do 100% of their visiting and home teaching. Now that just floored me. What does home and visiting teaching have to do with giving this baby a miracle? Miracles should not be regarded as deviations from the ordinary course of nature so much as manifestations of divine spiritual power. Miracles are not out of the ordinary. They are manifestations of something that can happen when we are acting consistently. In Moroni 7:37, it says, for it is by faith that miracles are wrought. If these things have ceased, woe unto the state of man. For it is because of unbelief, and all is in vain. Faith is an action of a belief that is true. If we stop acting, then all is in vain. Miracles will cease because there's no way to produce them. Now I'm going to kind of tell you a story of the sons of Helaman. Now we all know the story about how they stepped forward and said they would go, but I'm going to focus now on the story of the first battle that they were in. So as they were drawing the Lamanites away from their stronghold, their purpose was to keep them distracted or to keep them pulled away as another army of the Nephites came behind them and attacked them. This went on for 3 days. The army of the Nephites could not catch up with them. Finally they did, and there was a really sore battle. Now Helaman and the sons of Helaman had a choice, and they had just a few moments to make that choice. And Helaman asked his sons, what do you want to do? And his sons looked at him and said, we will go and fight. We will go and do this. And they went and they fought, and not one was killed. Now there's a story to this. They acted not on their own strength, but on humility. Humility is not self-doubt or fear. It is the courage or a divine strength that gives you the ability to produce miraculous events. And that's what the sons of Helaman did. They were able to, through their faith in their God, produce a miracle. Not one was lost. Again, when I was back in Provo, I had a visiting teaching route, and there was a couple ladies on my route. One day, as I was just going about my daily activities, I had a prompting that I needed to take cookies to one of my sisters. And I threw that out the door. I was like, you know what, I'm too busy, I have a little 6-month-old, it's snowing outside, there's no way. The prompting came back again. This time I listened. So I went to the kitchen, I baked some cookies, and I took it to my visiting teacher. Well, she wasn't home. So I'm like, okay, what do I do, right? And I just put the cookies on the doorstep, and as I turned to go, I looked across the street, and there was an old lady in a dress, on crutches, trying to shovel her sidewalk. And I knew right then why that prompting came. And so I was able to go across the street and help her, but I learned 2 things that day. Number 1, that I was able to ease her suffering, maybe just for a moment. But number 2, sometimes the promptings to act can produce a different result. As I went to go and visit or help my sister, visiting teacher's sister, I looked around me and I saw another opportunity that God needed me to take. And that made all the difference. That produced a miracle for her, even if it was just for that moment. Unity is everything. In a study done by 12,376 students, they compared them to when in college versus when they were out of college. And the thing that they found was those that volunteered in college, after college, were 100% more likely to help others in difficulty, 100% more likely to participate in community action programs, and were 100% more likely to develop a meaningful philosophy of life. They were more at peace, they were more whole individuals. As I continue in acting and promptings to serve, my faith will be increased and mighty miracles in the small one I perform and this lady will be performed. Unity, can you imagine if all of us were acting on just a small prompting, on a small way, what kind of miracles could be produced? Think of the sons of Heman. What kind of miracles were produced when they acted as one? When they had faith and the humility and the strength that they needed to act as one. To end the story of this lady, 6 months passed, and during those 6 months, our work on 100% visiting and home teaching. And people came over and they took care of their garbage, they mowed their lawn, they did everything they could. Well, after those 6 months, this little boy was able to come home and he was perfectly healthy. There was no problems on him whatsoever and the doctors were dumbfounded. They literally called him, he is a miracle baby. Thank you.